Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we unpack complex information to get you well-informed, fast.
We're continuing our journey through the MPEP, section by section.
Yep, making it a bit more digestible for you. Today, we're hitting Chapter 1800.
That's the one all about the Patent Cooperation Treaty, or PCT.
And our specific target today is Section 1845 within that chapter.
MPP 1845, Written Opinion of the International Searching Authority.
We've got our source materials ready. Let's dive in and see what key takeaways we can pull out.
Sounds good. So first off, Chapter 1800 sets the stage. The PCT, it's basically a framework to make filing for patents internationally a bit simpler, at least initially.
Right. Instead of filing everywhere at once, you start with one international application.
Exactly. And you see right away in the MPP, like in Section 1845, how it's all tied directly back to the treaty itself. Lots of references to specific PCT rules and articles.
Okay, so the MPP is explaining the U.S. implementation of this international treaty.
Pretty much, rules about sequence listings, where documents go, how they handle things like multiple inventions in one application.
Yeah.
It all connects back to the PCT framework.
Got it. So let's zoom in on 1845 itself, this written opinion from the International Searching Authority, or ISA. What's his job in this whole process?
It's a really important document. Under PCT Rule 43 bis.1, the ISA has to establish this written opinion right alongside the International Search Report.
Alongside it. So they come together.
Typically, yes. And its main point is to give the applicant an early heads up, sort of a preliminary assessment on whether their invention looks patentable.
An assessment. Okay.
Yeah.
So it goes beyond just listing the prior art documents found in the search.
Oh, absolutely. The search report lists the documents, sure, but the written opinion provides actual reasoning from the ISA.
Reasoning about what specifically?
About the big three criteria. Does the invention seem novel or new? Does it involve an inventive step, meaning is it non-obvious, and is it industrially applicable?
The core patentability requirements.
Exactly those. And it also flags if the application seems to meet other requirements the ISA looks at.
Interesting. And you mentioned it's an early assessment. Does it link to later stages?
It really does. This is crucial. If the applicant decides they want to go for what's called International Preliminary Examination, that's Chapter 2 of the PCT, this same written opinion often becomes the first written opinion for that examination phase, issued by the International Preliminary Examining Authority, or IPEA.
Wow, okay. So it can serve a dual purpose then. It's not just feedback on the search, it's potentially the starting point for the next round of examination.
Precisely. That makes it a really significant document. It tells the applicant, here's what we see so far, including potential problems.
What kind of problems might it flag?
Well, things like if the claims aren't written clearly, or if they don't seem to be properly supported by the description you provided in the application, the opinion will point those out.
And I guess if those issues are bad enough, it might stop the examiner from even judging the patentability part.
You got it. If the claims are, say, really ambiguous, the opinion might actually state that a meaningful opinion on novelty, inventive step, or industrial applicability just couldn't be formed.
It's a pretty strong signal to the applicant that something needs fixing.
Definitely. It's basically saying we can't even properly evaluate this yet because of these underlying issues.
The MPP section, 1845, it also talks about the actual form used, right? Form PCT IS 237.
Yes, it does. And understanding that form structure is helpful because it tells you what information is where. It's not just a free-form letter.
Ah, standardized, like different sections for different things.
Exactly. It's broken down into boxes. Box I covers the basis of the opinion, like what claims were searched. Box 2 deals with priority claims.
Okay.
Box 3 is important. That's where the examiner explains if they couldn't form an opinion on patentability, maybe because of those clarity or support issues we just talked about.
Makes sense. What about Box V? That sounds like it might be important.
Box V is arguably the core of it for the applicant. That's where the examiner gives their detailed, reasoned statement on each claim regarding novelty, inventive step, and industrial applicability.
For each claim? Wow.
Yep. If a claim looks like it meets all the criteria, it gets a positive statement. If not, the examiner has to spell out why not, maybe citing specific prior art documents or explaining why the description isn't enabling, things like that.
That sounds incredibly useful. That's the substantive feedback right there.
It really is. And there are other boxes too. Box 4 tackles lack of unity of invention. That's if the application seems to cover more than one distinct invention.
Ah, unity. We see that come up a lot.
We do. And boxes 7 and 8 cover other things, maybe technical defects in the application or other issues with clarity or support that weren't fatal but still need mentioning.
So these observations really help the applicant understand the examiner's perspective on all potential issues.
Exactly. It gives them a clear picture of the deficiencies the ISA found, which helps them decide how to respond, maybe by amending the claims or preparing arguments for later stages.
You mentioned technical defects. The MPP brings up sequence listings as something that can affect the opinion.
Yeah, that's a great example. If your invention involves nucleotide or amino acid sequences, you have to provide a sequence listing in a specific format. WIPO standard ST.26 is the current one. It's a separate part of the description.
And if you mess that up, or just don't include it.
Well, the MPP makes it clear the examiner has to note that deficiency in the written opinion, and if it's a significant failure to comply, they might even state that a meaningful search or opinion couldn't be formed for the claims related to those sequences.
Okay, so that shows these technical requirements aren't just bureaucratic hoops. They can actually block the substantive review.
They absolutely can. It underlines how important it is to get those details right.
Now, beyond technical compliance, our sources mention that things the applicant does can also shape the opinion or what happens next, like withdrawing the application.
Right. So say an applicant files a demand for that preliminary examination we mentioned, but then decides to withdraw the whole international application before the preliminary report is done.
Okay.
The International Bureau tells the IPEA, the examining authority, hey, they withdrew, and that basically stops that preliminary examination process right there. The MPP points to PCT rules like 90Bs for that procedure.
So withdrawal halts that specific examination track. What about unity of invention again? How do applicant actions play in there?
That's another big one. If the ISSA, during the initial search, decides there's a lack of unity, multiple inventions, they generally only search the first one claimed, what they deem the main invention.
Okay, so the search report and the written opinion would only cover that main invention initially.
Correct. Now, the applicant can choose to pay additional search fees to get the other inventions searched by the ISSA.
Okay. But what if they don't pay?
If they don't pay the extra fees, and they also don't amend the claims to stick to just that main invention, then the written opinion, and importantly, any later international preliminary examination report, will only cover that first invention that was searched.
So the scope gets limited by that choice.
Directly limited. That's based on PCT Article 34, 3C. It's a key strategic decision point for the applicant: pay more now for broader international review, or wait and deal with the other inventions later, maybe in the national phase.
That makes sense. It shows how these procedural choices have real consequences for the scope of the examination.
Definitely. And, the sources also remind us that this whole PCT system isn't just about the search and the opinion. There are other related procedures.
Like the sequence listings we already covered.
Right. And things like the option for a supplementary international search. That's where you can ask another searching authority to do a search, maybe to find prior art in different languages. The MPP references the rules for that, like PCT Rule 45 Bs.
More options, potentially more information, but also more complexity, I guess.
Can be. And ultimately, of course, the goal for most applicants is to get patents in specific countries. So the PCT application eventually needs to enter the national stage.
Right, like entering the U.S. national stage to be examined by the USPTO.
Exactly. The sources mention 35 USC 371 applications frequently. That's the legal basis for entering the U.S. national stage from a PCT application. And there are critical deadlines and requirements tied to that transition.
Such as?
Well, claiming priority to an earlier patent application, for instance. If you want the benefit of an earlier filing date for your national stage application, you generally have to make that priority claim within 4 months of starting the national stage, or 16 months from the filing date of that earlier application, whichever is later.
And that deadline matters.
Hugely. The MPP points out it's non-extendable, miss it, and you could lose that crucial earlier date. The sources also link to other MPP sections about things like publication procedures for these national stage applications.
So it's all interconnected. The international phase flows into the national phase, with specific rules bridging the two.
Perfectly put. And it's not just utility patents. The MPE sections we looked at also briefly touch on international design applications.
Oh, filed under the Hague Agreement.
Yes. If they designate the U.S., they also fit into this international framework. They can claim priority too, and the MPK even notes they use similar drawing conventions, like using broken lines to show parts that aren't being claimed. You'll see cross-references to MP 1500 and 2900 for that.
So the principles carry over, even between different types of applications within the international system.
They do, and that's a key takeaway from looking at Chapter 1800, how much it cross-references other MPP chapters. Chapter 2400 for sequences, 2900 for designs, 1100 for publication, Chapter 500 for determining applicant status. It really highlights that PCT practice is woven into the fabric of overall U.S. patent procedure.
So focusing on Section 1845 in the written opinion really opens a window onto this larger landscape. It's a key document, but its full meaning comes from understanding its place in the whole PCT process and how it connects to national procedures.
That's a great way to summarize it. The written opinion isn't isolated. It's shaped by procedure, it influences subsequent examination, and it informs applicant strategy as they navigate the path towards getting patents in their target countries.
Before we wrap, we definitely want to give a special thank you to Mike Shepard, the creative director who organized this entire audio series.
Absolutely. And also, our standard but important disclaimer. This summary was put together using AI tools and, it might have errors or leave things out. It's intended for general educational and informational purposes. It is definitely not legal advice.
Right. For the official word, you always need to consult the official MPP itself, or talk with a qualified instructor or a registered patent practitioner.
Please do.
Okay, so we've explored MP Section 1845, the written opinion of the ISA, seeing how it fits into the PCT structure described in Chapter 1800.
We saw its main role, that early reasoned look at patentability and application defects, and how things like unity of invention findings or application withdrawal can really change its scope or impact.
And we also saw the importance of related procedures, whether it's getting sequence listings right, meeting national stage deadlines, or even how design applications fit in. It's all part of a complex, interconnected system.
Yeah, the MPP really lays out a very specific, rule-driven process for international applications.
So here's something for you to think about. This PCT written opinion, it's very procedural, isn't it? It comes out at a certain time, its scope can be limited by fees or other actions, and it acts as this potential trigger for more examination. Does that structured procedural nature mostly help streamline things for applicants by giving standardized early feedback?
Or does it maybe introduce specific hurdles and complexities that applicants really need to navigate carefully? What's the real value for your practice or studies in digging into the mechanics of how and when this opinion gets issued and what can limit it?